Welcome to Okayama, a short but very tricky track. Here are the track conditions for the run. As always, first we watch the lap and then we analyze. So for T1, we're looking for the 100 board for braking. Can use the shadow, but I wouldn't advise it. Sometimes it's not there. This is going to be a fairly early apex. We're going to trail brake quite a bit. Get on throttle at the curbing here. And we want to run all the way out. Or I should say, about here is what you want. Because if you're over here, then you can't make it back to the right side. And you need to place the car right here for T2. So this is the reason why we sacrificed the exit just a little bit. We're going to dab the brakes here along this Marshall post. It's kind of far away, so it's hard to see. But so this is more of a feeler thing. Once you get used to it, your vision should be at the apex. I want to trail brake with very little input, but we're trail braking all the way to the apex and want to run across the whole curb here. Confident, very confident throttle. And we can use a little bit of the dirt here, just a little bit. So don't be scared here. If you use too much dirt, it's going to give you an off track. So definitely don't do that. And this is probably the trickiest corner on the track. The braking point is somewhere between the 50 and the 100 board. And it just depends how much grip you have throughout the lap. I would say err on the side of caution. Try to brake at the 75. 75 board is safe. If you brake too late, the car is just going to wash out. And you don't want that. So brake early. Hug this curb as much as possible. The car is going to be very twitchy on the brakes. You're trail braking. And you're just trying to get on throttle just enough so that the rear doesn't snap. And it's confident enough that it takes you to the outside edge of the track. As you can see, I had a little bit more room there. I could have potentially taken more speed, but the rear is so unstable through there that I just preferred to err on the side of caution, get a great exit, and not slide the rear. Because one of the things that you'll notice as you're doing laps is that if you slide the rear at all, then what's going to happen is it's going to overheat the rear tires, and then you're going to struggle the rest of the lap. Struggle quite a bit. So I just recommend brake early, don't overheat the rear tires, be careful on throttle, and you'll see that this is something that I focus on quite a bit throughout the lap. So for the hairpin, we're braking before the 100 board, fairly heavy on the brakes. We're braking in a diagonal. Notice it's at a diagonal. We're not braking along the left edge of the track. And the reason for that is because this area here is cambered. So we want to get into this area because that's going to give us more grip and rotate the car basically. So that's why we stick to the inside here. We want to hug this curbing as much as possible. Too much of this curb and you're going to activate traction control. So try to avoid that. As you can see, not 100% throttle here, because what happens is the rear will step out. You do not want the rear to step out. So be cognizant of the traction, how much grip you have. Don't force 100% throttle. And as you can see, there is a slight correction here. So I did have that problem. I had a little bit of a wiggle. And if we go into the car here, yeah, you just have to take my word for it here. So let's continue. We want to get back to the right-hand side of the track. Obviously, we want to put our right side tires completely on the right-hand side. However, it's hard. It's dangerous. You dip a tire here, the car will spin out. So just go as far right as you're comfortable, but know that the more right you are, the more speed you can carry through this corner. Very light on the brakes, kind of just carrying the brake all the way to the apex here. And we want to run over this curb. You can even run over a little bit of this grass. So use all the track. You pay for it, right? Very early on throttle and want to run out very wide. We can use almost that much dirt there before we get an off track. So utilize it. And we're coming in here at an angle. Be very careful here because this curbing dips down a little bit and this creates a bump. You have to anticipate that bump. Otherwise, stay off of this. Again, a lot of trail braking. Tons of trail braking in this track. And we're trying to rotate the car so that we can get on throttle as early as possible. Run over that curbing and then run over. And again, you can run a little bit on the grass there. It doesn't hurt. As far as braking zone for this next combination of these two hairpins, we're going to be braking before the 50. If you push this, again, you're going to lose the rear of the car. You're going to overheat the rear and it's going to impact your exit. So brake early. Be controlled on entry and it will reward you on exit. As you can see, very similar approaches to these two corners. One of the things that we want to find is how much road do we want to use here before we are not able to get back to the left-hand side to open up the next corner. And so can we put the car here? Obviously, by looking at my line, you can see that you can't do that. You're going to sacrifice too much because you're not going to be able to bring the car back. So you have to be about, I would say, two-thirds of the way from the left-hand side. That allows you to bring the car back a little bit here so that you can open up for the next corner. And that's really, really important. Again, very light brake, not too much inputs on the steering. As you can see, I put just a little bit too much steering input. And guess what? The rear wanted to snap when I got to about 80% throttle. So you want to avoid that as much as possible because that's what overheats those rear tires. So as I'm going through here, I'm cognizant that the rear tires are overheated from that little wiggle there. So I took it a little bit easier through here. And you'll see that I modulate this throttle a little bit more than normal here. But I am aiming to put my right-hand side tires past this groove, past the groove of this curbing, because it kind of hooks it and it rotates the rear and allows you to carry more speed through the corner. So definitely do that. It should automatically spit you out all the way to the left. You can run a little bit wider, but notice that this is going to narrow in. So ideally, and it's hard sometimes to bring the car back to the right to then break in a straight line for the next corner without dipping your left-hand tire onto this little dirt patch, which will then like get the rear to the left-hand side. So you don't want that. So we're going to use this green curbing as our brake marker here. And what we want to do here is brake before it ends. We want to be conservative here. Light braking, rotate the car, and focus on a really, really good exit. Because guess what? This is the most important corner, second most important corner in the track. The most important corner on this track is the right-hander prior to the hairpin, because that is the best passing opportunity. But this is the second best passing opportunity. And again, Same trend as before. We can use a little bit of the dirt. It doesn't really slow you down, but a little bit too much and you're going to get an off track, and you want to avoid that. So maximize your exit, and hopefully maybe you can make a pass into T1 and gain some positions. And that is a lap at Okayama.